I am doing my video live today from a 2-year-old's room because we are talking about younger kids and emotions, big emotions that are probably happening in your house right now, and how we can kind of walk through some of that with our kids. I'm going to kind of tell you what we do when we experience a tantrum with a 2-year-old, and let me tell you, they happen all the time. But if you've got older kids, preschoolers, younger elementary students, all the way up to our junior high kids, some of this information is still going to be helpful because sometimes we have 12-year-olds who still are working on emotion regulation, and sometimes as parents we're still working on that. So we're going to kind of walk through what to do when a tantrum hits and some steps that we can take as parents to help our children through that. So there are lots of strategies that we can use outside of a tantrum that we can use when our kids are happy and positive, and then when a tantrum hits or when our kids are feeling those big emotions, they've kind of got those tools to use to regulate their own emotions and kind of take charge of their own body and calming their body down. So something that I do with my 2-year-old is we practice breath work. So he knows how to take big, deep breaths, and he's even starting to kind of use that without me prompting that, which would be the idea. But if we can be working on deep breaths outside of big emotions, then when our kids are in those big emotions, we can say, you need to calm your body down, you need to take some deep breaths, and they kind of already know what we're talking about. Some ways that we can practice that, bubbles are a good way to practice deep breathing. So if you've actually got some bubbles, and you can go outside and practice taking in a deep breath and then blowing the bubbles out, that's a good way to practice that. For older kids, you can just have them practice putting their hands on their belly and taking in a deep breath so that their hands move on their belly and kind of go back and forth as they take that belly breath. Another thing, I've got some breathing boards that are really great that I'll try to post a link to, but just having that, you could look on YouTube too and find breathing boards or digital, things that move as kids breathe, and kind of show them in that visual way how to take breaths. That's really helpful. Another thing that we practice is muscle relaxation. This is another really easy one for even the little guys, but just squeezing all of your muscles and then relaxing them, and then just kind of going back and forth and showing kids how they can do that. Just being able to take that pause. What's up, baby?
What are you doing?
Something that we practice whenever we can is just recognizing emotions in ourselves and other people, and building that emotion vocabulary. So if someone on TV looks angry or sad or happy, I try to point that out. If I myself am feeling really happy or sad or mad, or my 2-year-old is obviously angry or sad, I'm using those words and I am kind of pointing that out to him so that he's building that vocabulary. And it's really exciting to see that kind of just happen. The other day he said, "I'm excited," without any prompting, and I thought that was so great because he used it appropriately. He can say when he's crying and frustrated and sad, he can say, "I'm sad." So, giving kids the vocabulary, the words to use can help in a tantrum because they have a way to express to you what they're feeling. So we can start that as early as, 18 months too, as soon as language is developing. But sometimes our older kids, in 3rd grade and 4th and 5th and 6th, they might not necessarily have that vocabulary. Sometimes as adults we have to work on that, and so we can do that as a family just by noticing the facial expressions of people around us, pointing it out to our kids, anybody on TV, anybody in real life, and in ourselves. So what do we do when a tantrum happens? How do we deal with that? How do we handle that as parents? I think it's important to have a plan for that, again, outside of the tantrum or the big emotions, so that we know how to walk our kids through that and how to handle that in the best way. We're probably experiencing this a lot more. I know we are at our house. because sleep routines are off, school schedules are off, work schedules are off. Everybody's just a little bit off right now. And so sometimes, in kids, when they're worried or things are just different for them and routines change, sometimes that comes across in tantrums and in those big emotional responses. And so I think it's just something that we're all kind of dealing with right now, and it's helpful to know how to move forward. So when we have a tantrum in our house, which happens very often, the first thing that I kind of do is check in with myself and see, what am I feeling? Because sometimes I'm really irritated or annoyed or frustrated or need my own space. And that might have played into why that tantrum is happening, but it can certainly play into how, my toddler is able to calm down. So if we can kind of recognize in ourselves first, what am I feeling right now? And then take a step back if we need to, if we are so, frustrated or irritated that we can't handle it in an appropriate way. But if we can calm ourselves down first, we're going to be able to calm our children down easier as well. So I kind of start there, and then we work through some of those calming strategies. So taking deep breaths, prompting that if we need to, prompting doing some muscle squeezes, giving a muscle squeeze if we need to, using some words. Obviously with our older children, we can just say, you need to use your words. Let's calm your body down and let me know what you need, because they might have, more of those words to tell us what they need. If that doesn't work and there's just no calming them down, I kind of take a step back, maybe walk around the room, leave the room, as long as he's safe, and come back and try again. But the reality is that until he's calmed down, it's going to be really hard to move forward. So that's why it's important to have those, strategies for kids to calm their bodies down, and then be able to use them in the moment, which sometimes it takes a little bit of time. But we just kind of start with that, give him some space if we need to, come back. And then once he's calm, and I kind of say that, once you're calm, we can talk about what's going on. Then we can kind of move forward from there. A large part of emotion response and tantrums in kids is not necessarily understanding, right? So sometimes kids don't understand why they have to turn the TV off, or why they can't hit their sister because, she's not sharing something with them. So a lot of kind of working through those responses is explaining and being there to kind of say, I understand this is frustrating for you right now, and you really want the toy, but it's not safe for you to hit your sister, and I can't let you do that. So just using really clear words to explain things to them can be really helpful. Having clear consequences for behaviors. So, the more consistency that we can have around what we're saying and what we're doing is better for our kids in the long run. So if you can say, if you continue to hit your sister, then I'm going to have to take that toy away, and you won't be able to play with it for the rest of the day. And then when they hit their sister again, because we know that's going to happen sometimes, you follow through and you take that toy away, no matter the tantrum. Something that I like to say a lot is, I love you too much to let you jump off of the couch like that. As fun as that is, I can't let you do that, because I love you so much, because I care about you. The reality is that we have to walk with our kids through a lot of these big emotions, because they're still learning. They're still trying to figure out how to regulate their bodies and how to deal with emotions. And so we really have to be there and prompt and, kind of ask questions and give them the answers sometimes, and just kind of walk with them through those emotional responses. I think sometimes as parents, when I talk to parents, and, myself included, we think, well, they should just know this. Isn't this common sense? We should just, understand this. And the reality is that we, learn that somewhere along the way, we learned how to react and how to deal with emotions or not deal with emotions, how to cope with stress, all of those things. So we owe it to our kids to kind of teach them that and walk them through those responses. And I know that I forget that sometimes as a parent, and just think, he should know this, and just kind of forget that it's really my job to help walk him through that and teach him those skills. In that same sense, it's really easy I understand this completely. It's easy for parents to just give into a tantrum. You try to provide that consequence and then you take something away and it's a worse tantrum. And so it's really easy to just give into that and say, fine, just have this, or fine, just do this. And I understand that. And while it's really easy in the moment, and I myself have done that, it is, worse in the long run, because it's kind of letting your child know that when you come up with a consequence, it's not necessarily, gonna stick. And so it kind of gives them that uncertainty for the next time that you, lay out a consequence like that. So as hard as it is, as long as kids are safely having that emotional response, they're not hurting themselves or hurting property or somebody else, we kind of have to give them that space, give them the tools to work through things. Sometimes, and this is something I'm noticing that's happening a lot as I'm home trying to work, my husband's home trying to work, sometimes the function of a behavior or a tantrum or an emotion is attention. So we have to kind of take a step back sometimes and look at a behavior or, something going on with our kids and say, what's the function of this? Is it that they're looking for some attention, positive or negative, from me? Do they need something? Do they need sleep or food? Do they, is it a tangible thing that they want, like a toy, from their sibling? Are they trying to avoid doing something? That's another common function of behavior. But I think something that we're all going to notice and recognize more right now is that the function of behavior is attention. So we have to kind of look at that and say, what can I do each day to provide some positive attention to my child, to kind of be preventative in some of those tantrums. And we have to realize that this takes practice and time, and the first time that you kind of maybe practice some strategies, or the first time you really stand clear in your consequences and not give into a tantrum, it's gonna be probably worse, but don't let that keep you from continuing, because in the long run, it really is better for our children. It's gonna decrease tantrums and behaviors and just benefit them in the long run, even though right now you might try it once and think, this is not working, I don't have time to deal with this right now. These skills, for us as parents, for our children, take time and practice. And so we kind of owe it to ourselves and to our children to give it some time, to give it some consistent practice. So just to recap, we're all experiencing tantrums and behaviors in our children. It's something that we're going to probably see increase here as we're all home. The first thing that we can do is be aware of our own emotions as parents, to kind of check in with ourselves and recognize how we're feeling. We can try to figure out the function of the behavior. So what do they need? Do they need some positive attention? Do they need food, sleep? Are they, is it a tangible toy that they're wanting? Why is this behavior happening? Kind of helps us understand. We can be working on strategies, so deep breathing, muscle relaxation, building that emotion communication outside of these tantrums and behaviors, so that when we are experiencing those, we can kind of, our kids can use those strategies and we can help them kind of walk through those responses, get their body calm, and then try to work through whatever's going on with a calm body. We really have to make sure that we're walking alongside our kids, that we're providing understanding, clear communication, clear consequences, clear expectations and routine for kids, because in the long run, that's just going to benefit them the most and hopefully decrease those tantrums and allow them to work through some of those behaviors and emotional responses on their own. I hope that this is helpful information for you. I want you to know that you're not the only parent going through this. I'm in the same boat. There are plenty of other parents who are dealing with increased tantrums right now, behaviors. Everybody's just kind of in it together right now. So keep that in mind. Just know that our kids want to be with us. They love us above all, even when their behavior shows differently. And so don't underestimate that connection that you have with them, and don't underestimate that sometimes they just need to laugh and be silly and cuddle and play and spend time with you. That is just a really important resource strategy that probably trumps everything I've talked about today. If you're noticing a lot of behaviors in your kids, just go back to square one and just see if maybe spending some time together and building that bond kind of decreases some of that. That's frustrating, isn't it?
Oh no.
You love Dad.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's on a work call right now, so you get to hang out with me.
Oh no!
Oh no, it's so terrible.
Mama.
Can you take a deep breath?
Mama.
Hope.
Where's Dad coming?
First, take a deep breath. Take another one. Try another one. We need to lay down. Okay, ready? Let's play with toys in here for a little bit, okay? And then when Dad's done with his call, we'll all play together. Deal?
Deal.
Deal?